Welcome back to Wargaming World, to North Africa 1941, and to another game of 1 hour Wargames. So for anybody unfamiliar with 1 hour Wargames, this is the rule set itself. Right, I've been really keen to be able to play this game with a whole set of new figures. I've got both the Africa Corps and the 8th Army, and I thought I'd try and play this game. Really straightforward game, fighting for this area. I'll talk through what we've got in terms of both forces. Right, so let's start by talking about the area itself. We're really fighting over this space that you can see here. In reality, we've got the Africa Corps slightly closer to it, but we've also got the 8th Army with similar forces, and they'll also have effectively the first turn. So this is the area we're fighting over. I'm not going to go over the rules. I've done a how to play video beforehand, but it's really very simple in terms of how we run the rules. And I'll talk it through the first couple of turns, and you can pick it up as we go. But I'm absolutely sure at the end of this you'd be able to play a game yourself, and certainly you can pick up the rules from the book, and I'll add that into the description. All right, let's take a closer look to at the Africa Corps, and you'll also see a number of dice already down here. So I'm just going to talk through the forces and what we're looking at. So go a little bit closer, and you'll see we've got a Panzer III. We've actually got 2 tanks, and then we have 3 squads. So I've marked here 1 and 2. So we've got the rifles. So we've got 5 rifles, and we've also got an NCO with a submachine gun, and then we've got a light machine gun. We've got a similar setup there just in front of the 2nd tank, and the one just at the back there marked with 5 and 6, we've got a unit, but it's got an anti-tank rifle with it. So that's the platoon itself. Then there are some other markers. One, this is the leader, so this is the commander, and then at the back we've got a mortar team, and then we've got a 3 up there. So I'm going to tell you what that is just in a moment. Now we've got mirrored British forces, so we've got a Matilda 2 here, and then 1 further up there. So 1 and 2, we've got the first section, again 5 rifles. I've got a Bren team at the back there. 3 and 4 this time, we've got the rifles, and also we've got a boys anti-tank. 5 and 6 again, we've got a repeat there with the rifles and with the Bren. Going back with a 1, we've got our leader, and I don't have large mortars. I've just got a light mortar there for the British, and it's going to be the same in terms of its effect. And again, up at the hills, we've got 2 Bren team, and this one, and similar for the German, is for the following reason. And added into the game is an airstrike. So we might roll a dice at the start of a turn, and we might get lucky, and for either side we've got either a British or a German strike. It might be blocked by the anti-aircraft units that we've got. That's why they're up at the top there. I have to roll for them, but I'm going to factor that into the game. It's an addition into the standard rules, but it's going to be easy to work through. Right, okay, let's set up the game and think about how this game plays. Okay, let's have a think about how this game is won and lost. So we've got 3 buildings here, and then we have 2 at the back, and then we've got 3 in here in this sort of enclosed area, so 8 in total. If we have 5 occupied by either side for a full turn, then they are deemed the winner. We've also got equal numbers of units, so you've seen that we've got 6 units of the main units. So that was the black dice and the green dice of the two forces, and then 2 tanks. So that's 8 units in total. As soon as we lose 5 of that, then that particular force again will withdraw. The other units that we've had, so we had a leader, and then we've got the anti-aircraft there at the top, as well as the mortars. They are support, so we can lose those units, but it doesn't matter in terms of the victory. So again, it's once we lose 5 of the infantry and tank, etc., and the game is done. The idea is that this is a quick game, so the whole thing should be done in an hour when you play it, and therefore this isn't going to be a very long video. It should be fairly short and sweet, and we should get a good game. Right, okay. It'll be the British to go first, as the Germans are in a slightly better position. And so let's start with turn 1. Alright, so these are the rules. Chapter 18 of the book. Flip over, we can see there are 4 main types of forces: infantry, mortars, anti-tank, and tanks. And for movement, infantry 6 inches. When he talks about anti-tank there, it's essentially being larger anti-tank weapons being tracked. So we've got some infantry, so essentially for this game it's going to be infantry at 6 inches and tanks at 12. Stick on the shooting. The range of firing for infantry and tanks is 12 inches. Mortars, it's 48 inches. In mortars we can have 2 types, direct and indirect, just as long as somebody has observation of sight. And as we build up casualties, the casualties we work out by rolling a d6. There are some slight variations, and when we get to 15, then that unit is removed. And you might think about it in terms of when we're getting 15, rather than people being killed, etc. It might just be the overwhelming morale, getting shock, etc. All of those types of things to factor in. Right, okay, on to start with British movement. And we'll start off with our tanks and infantry. Now, I have added one thing into the game, and that's a potential air attack. So before each turn, I'm going to roll, and with a 6, we have the appearance of aircraft from either force. So here it's a 1, so nothing for the British. Okay, so the 2 British tanks moved 12 inches, and then we've got the infantry behind it, 2 units moving 6 inches, and I've got a 3rd unit which have moved into this olive grove. Over to the Germans. If we've got any aircraft activity. No, we haven't. Right, so this Panzer III has moved forward. It's just out of range for the Matilda. The remainder of the units have then moved and advanced. So we've got this unit moved 6 inches forward, going towards this building. Then the other 2 are moving slightly further across over to the left-hand side. And there we go, very simple and straightforward about how to do a complete turn. So that's turn 1 complete. Over to turn 2. Alright, turn 2, start with the British to see if we get an airstrike. Yes, we do. Now, before we have an airstrike, I want to see if the anti-aircraft can hit the Spitfire as it comes in. So roll d6, and we need a 6 for a hit. Yes, it has. Well, almost flying far too close to the anti-aircraft. It's hit, and unfortunately the British lose their potential air activity, and so we continue with the rest of the turn. Alright, well, the British have advanced with the infantry. I haven't moved the tanks. Moved the mortar team into this building, or up to the roof. It can't fire, you can't move and fire. And the unit that are still moving to the edge of that olive grove are on the edge. They'll come out next time. You'll see the infantry in the back there moving towards that building, and then we have the Matilda as it is. Now, before we do the German turn, we need to see whether there is an airstrike. No, there isn't. So in terms of movement, we've moved up this squad, getting cover from the tank and indeed from the building. It's still a tank, that is, out of range, those 2 tanks there. On the other side we've got the next movement of this tank. Now it's moved all the way up towards that building. It's out of range from that tank, but certainly as the British look to take that building, they'll be within machine gun fire, that's for sure. And then we've got these two units. Or the one on the far from us has taken that building, and this one is moving up to support the tank and to attack. The last thing we've got is the mortar team. Now its range is 48 inches, and that means in reality it can be within range of that building, and as the British begin to advance into this area, but as they're not there, that's as far as we go. So that's the end of turn 2. We're going to start turn 3. We're not rolling to see if we get Spitfire returning, because obviously that's been knocked out already. So movement from the British in turn 3. So the British are on the attack, so we've advanced with this tank and the infantry behind it. You can see on in the middle here, units moved out of the olive grove and is now advancing, and indeed we've then got the British tank advancing here, be within range of the Panzer III in the German turn. We've also got British infantry moving up as they look to occupy this building. Now we can also have the first firing. We've got the British mortar team there, and they can fire on the German infantry. It's this German infantry here. It's within 48 inches, so we take a d6. Now a mortar against infantry, also we add 2 to the roll. However, because it's in reasonable cover, we would then half the effect. So this roll plus 2, so it's 7, and we're going to half that, so it will be 3.5. I'm going to roll it down, so 3 is the effect. So I'm also going to take that 3, and I'm going to split it between the two teams that are together. So I'm going to say 1 against the machine gun team and 2 against the rifles. What happens is when we get up to 15 with either of the two, then that particular unit is removed. So that's the end of the British turn. Over to the Germans. Start with a potential air attack. No, we don't. Okay, we've got a Panzer III here. Now it does have a capability both as firing tank to tank, but it could also use its machine gun firing at the infantry, but it's just out of range. So we'll just concentrate here. So we'll say it's 1d6 the Panzer III at the Matilda II. So it's a d6, and we also add 2 in terms of its armour piercing capability, but it's simply a plus 2. So what do we get? That's 1, so that's 3, and we'll repeat the process firing at this tank. This time we've got 4. So in terms of movement, this unit now moves into position up towards this wall. So further along, we've got this unit moving forward behind the tank, as the second unit furthest away also is moving to advance to what looks like the key critical building in terms of what might determine who wins this game. Right, so as a whole, that's the end of turn 3. Over to turn 4, starting with the British. We can start here with the Matilda II. It's going to fire back at the tank with its main gun, but its machine gun can fire at the infantry as a second fire, just to say that the infantry will be in cover, so we'll half the effect. Firing at the tank plus 2, so 5. Firing at the nearest infantry unit, the one that's in cover, it's got a 6, halved, that's 3. It's already got 2 on it, so we're going to go up to 5. I didn't split the casualties there with the machine gun simply because it's further back, I think, in cover, so this was its main target. So like I say, up to 5. I'll fire the mortar again. I'll say again this unit is in cover. I'll do it between the rifles and machine gun. So it's 1d6 plus 2 and then halved. So 3, split between the two again. So split between the two, I've allocated again 2 of the casualties simply because it's a bigger unit. So this one now is on 7, and the machine gun on 2. Now the Matilda will fire at the Panzer III. Can't use the machine gun because it's not in range in terms of the infantry, and I'm going to say it will be ineffective tank to tank. So I'm just going to use the main gun, so it's 1d6 plus 2, and that's 3. As far as movement is, the British have moved, this unit moved trying to get cover from the tank, approaching towards the Germans over here. And as this particular building seems to be perhaps maybe the crux of this game, the furthest unit has moved into a defensive position, both with its Bren team and rifle team here behind this hard cover, and it's going to be supported by this second section, which also has the boys anti-tank with it, moving in this direction. So that's the end of the British. We move to the Germans. Let's have a look and start off to see whether we get any aircraft. 6, remember? No, it doesn't appear. So it's the German turn. So I've moved this machine gun into position behind the tank. It didn't have a firing option to fire towards the British infantry there. But there is 3 elements of firing. So the tank, again, will fire at the Matilda. It has a machine gun, so the machine gun can fire at this infantry that's in cover. And I think the other German infantry can also fire at the British here, also again in cover. I was going to mention that I was going to move the infantry into this building and perhaps up to the top, but in terms of range, they've only got 12 inches, so they wouldn't really have much influence over there. So let's see the impact of the firing on the Matilda and the infantry. So this plus 2 on the Matilda, and it's another 3, taking it up to 6. It's the tank machine gun against the infantry. I'm going to say in terms of the target, it's just the rifles, because the machine gun or the Bren team at the back are covered, so I'm just going to calculate against this unit. So first of all, it's the machine gun from the tank, so that's a 4. So with a 4, the unit's in cover, so it's half effect, so that's 2. Secondly, it's going to be this infantry unit firing the same target again, so that's, and then we've got another 1, so that's 3 in total. Then it's a tank-to-tank engagement, so it's this plus 2 with the Panzer III against the Matilda, and that's 6. So that takes the Matilda up to 10 in total, and the other units are now advancing behind the tank towards this building. Alright, so just going to pause here for a second just to say a couple of things. First is that in actual fact I've played this game all the way through beforehand and then realised that I'd actually missed a whole British turn, so it's the reality and challenges of playing a game solo and over a number of days. So I put all the figures back to where I thought they were, and yeah, that's just one of the challenges that that I face as I'm playing. Another thing I wanted to say just at this point is that also you can make obviously some variations in the rules that we've got. So let me show you a couple of examples, and one of them is the tank-to-tank piece. So I know you'd look at it and think, well, tanks can fire at each other from miles away, which they can, but we've modified it in terms of making this game very simple. But another thing is, as the game goes on, you might think, well, they're just wearing each other down in terms of the tanks, and as a consequence of that, it might make it a little dull. So what you could do is you might say that when we roll, a 1 is always a miss. And as a consequence of that, that's quite good. If you're, for example, on 14 and somebody fires at you, then it doesn't mean automatically you're going to get knocked out. And secondly, you might also think that if you roll a 6, then you get a chance of making some kind of key hit. So what we're going to do moving forward is that when we roll a 6, I'm going to roll it again, and if it's another 6, then it means it's a critical hit, and it'll knock out the other tank. In addition, as I say, if it's a 1, we'll miss it out. Some other things you might think is that if we look at this unit here, we've got a junior leader, so we might have a sergeant or a corporal, And we've also got the main leader. Now, as the morale withers on these units, what we might again also say is that if you've got a junior leader with you, then it reduces this number by 1 at the start of a turn, and if it's a leader, you might reduce it by 2, or the leader might share that across the 2 teams. Remember, we've got rifles and a machine gun team there. So I'll apply that, but there's all sorts of different options. The only challenge you've got is actually remembering them, and as I mentioned right at the start, the fact that I've missed an entire turn means that sometimes you've got that challenge to test the grey matter. Okay, right, on with the game. So let's start the game in the way I've just described. So we do have the junior leader and the senior leader here. So we'll take the 3 and remove that. I'm going to say we can't do that on the tank. We have to stay exactly as it is. So we'll do that to start off with. I've then moved the Bren team just behind the other side of the tank, just at the top. And I'm going to fire with the infantry unit. It can be fired at, so it can fire back the other way, and it's going to fire at that infantry unit there. Again, we're halving, halving the numbers, so that because it's behind hard cover. How do we get there? It's a 1, and I'm going to say that if we get a 1, halved would be just half, and I'm going to say it's no effect, so that firing doesn't impact at all. The tank, I'm going to have again, I'm going to fire at the Panzer III, and then the machine gun is going to fire at that unit also. So this +2. What do we got there? So we've got 7, and that tank is already on 5, takes it up to 12. Firing at the infantry. We've got 4, I'm going to half that, so 2, and this unit goes up to 9. Another tank-to-tank engagement, so the Matilda this time is firing at the Panzer III. What we got? So we've got 3 + 2, so we end up for that on 8. Alright, so some movement as well. The anti-tank team has moved behind this area of cover, the rifles, and the junior leader has moved here to support what is a movement towards this building, which the infantry unit has made, the rifle unit, and it's getting some cover from the Bren team. The Bren team can't fire, nothing in within 12 inches. Finally, we've got the mortar team to fire. Mortar team is going to fire on this infantry unit here. I'm going to say now it's only on this unit because the machine gun had moved. I am going to say it's still got cover, so it's 1d6, and then I think it's 1d6 + 2 and halved. The unit is on 9, so it's going to be impacted by take it to 5, 2.5, so it's just 2, taking that up to 11. Let's see if we get the airstrike for the Germans. We still don't. So the same thing applies in terms of the morale. So I said 11. We've got the junior leader here with this unit, so it goes down to 10. I can't impact it on the tank, and I also haven't shared that with the machine gun team, because it doesn't have a junior leader, and it's just on its own. So we've got the Panzer III, it's going to fire again, tank to tank, and then it'll also fire with the machine gun. So let's start there at the tank with a 4, + 2 is a 6, which means that the Matilda's now up to 12. Fire at the infantry there. It's in cover, so it's halved, so it's just the 1. Rifles firing. It's again at the same target. It's again halved because we're in cover, so there's no effect. Machine gun will fire at the same target. That's going to be 2, so that goes up to 3 in total for this unit. So the Panzer III is going to fire. It's a 2 + 2, so Matilda just survives up to 14. A bit like the Matilda in the previous turn, it's not within 12 inches of the infantry, so it can't fire the machine gun. So I've moved this unit further forward, and I'll do with the same with this one. I've advanced that unit there. I want to make sure I advance under cover. There's no point advancing out here in the open and within fire of that Matilda, see if we can knock it out first. And the last thing I need to do is the German mortar team. With the target, I'm going to say it is in cover, so it's going to be this +2 halved. What we got? So this +2, 3, so 1.5, so it's only a 1, so this unit goes up to 4. Let's start here with, we have 4 in terms of the morale, but again we got that senior leader and the junior, so it'll go down to 1. So let's start with firing the Matilda at the Panzer III. And it's a 5 +2, and as a consequence the Panzer III is knocked out. So it's the first major casualty. I might well have the same up the top there in terms of that Matilda too. But okay, we're going to fire again in terms of the tank's machine gun at the same target that it has been halved, so it's 2. Again, this unit will go on to 12. Second unit firing at it, so it's going to be the first of all the Bren team firing at the same infantry unit, halved the numbers, so it's going to be a 1. So that's up to 13, and then the rifle team is going to fire the same at it, and so we've got potentially, if it's a 4, it'll knock the unit out completely. So let's see what we roll, but it's a 3. So with the 3 it's halved, and as a consequence this unit goes to 14. We've still got some firing though, so we've got the mortar team here, so that can fire. The team's going to fire at this unit again, so it could be, see, no, so with a 1 it's halved, so yeah, it survives here, so I'll know what to do with this the next phase, which might be occupying this building. Let's move up to the top and look at the Matilda again. It's on 14, so it's pretty precarious, but it can fire at this Panzer III. So 4 +2, that infantry unit, it's up to 14, but at 14 it's still going. Now, in the very likely event that the Matilda is going to get knocked out in the next phase, I've also moved the anti-tank here, so it'll be in range for the next phase of play. I'm going to fire with the Bren team towards the Germans there, going to be halved because the Germans are in hard cover, and the rifles are going to occupy that building, and finally I'm going to move this unit across to support the unit that have moved into the building. That's where they all finish, so just to do the firing. Bren team, we've got a 3, so it's just 1. That's where we finish. Right, over to the Germans. It would be handy if we could get some kind of airstrike, I think, in this game this time, but nope, the Germans miss again. From a morale point of view, I can reduce this from 14 to 13, remove the 1 completely. Start with this Panzer III and see if it can knock out the Matilda. Yes, it does. 1 would have been a miss, but that Matilda is no more. Now, although I am playing this game solo, it is intriguing because I'm not quite sure exactly how I would move as the German player. So I feel like I'm going to have there's a unit here that could be knocked out really easily, so I might hide them in that particular building, which in some ways is sensible. However, that would expose this unit on its own, and it's going to be attacked then by 2 British units, which seem pretty fresh. It's also got the support of the tank at the moment. You know, we could knock this tank out is with the anti-tank, and unfortunately that's all the way up at the top of the table. I could attack the anti-tank unit there, but I think I'm not going to be able to knock that out soon enough before it hits the Panzer III, although it might potentially miss if we roll a 1. But importantly, it's occupying the buildings, which is key, and the British have taken that one at the top now, and as a consequence they have 4, and if I retreat these units across here, it'll be soon enough before the British can occupy 1 of these 3 and take the game. So I need to have a think about what support I can offer, whether I withdraw 1 of these units and support in this area, or alternatively whether I attack and see if I can take that building up the top. But I think this game has swung in terms of a British advantage. Right, to change of direction for the Germans. So I have moved this unit, look at the top there, I've withdrawn that unit back into a defensive position, so it's now out of range from British firing. I'm going to lose that Panzer III, I'm pretty sure, so rather than try and contest this area, I've shifted the units. So I've moved the infantry unit, the senior leader and the anti-tank in this direction, and I've also moved this unit into the building. It's not on top, it's just to mark where they are. And similarly I've also withdrawn the machine gun team. So if the British want to advance and take these buildings to win the game, they can do, but now I've added a number of units into this spot and made it a little bit more difficult for them to do so. The final thing I need to do is to fire with the German mortar at what I think is going to be the attacking British unit in cover, as I have before. However, that's a 6, so it's going to be 3, and that unit goes up to 4 in casualties. There we finish. So hopefully you can see that actually in any game it can really, you know, change and shape. I'm playing this solo and with simple rules, but I think this is an interesting game, and you know, changing the shape of it. We've got our objectives, and yeah, it's now shifted in the game, and I think it's going to be this particular area which becomes key. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is to see whether this boy's anti-tank does knock out this Panzer III. Anything but a 1. And it's a 3, so it's hit. I only had 1 remaining on its in terms of protection, and that is knocked out. The thing we need to remember is about losing, I should say, 5 units in total. So the Germans have lost 2 thus far. These 2 tanks, the British the 1, and also pretty close to losing another. But again, this game is pretty close. Reduce that morale from 4 to 1. I've advanced the 2 units towards this stone wall. Now I'm going to say that the unit that have moved into this building can't be fired at if they don't fire. So I'm going to say they've effectively disappeared. So that Matilda needs to either move or just stay in a static position, just in case that unit is activated. This unit has moved on top of this area to get a firing position, but it can be fired at. I'm going to say it's in cover, so the mortar will fire at this. Right, so it's 6 plus 2, it means it's going to be 4, goes up to 6. Finally over here we've got the rifles are now supporting this other one which is occupying that building. We've got the Bren team that's covering just in case the Germans move again forward to attack. They're not going to, but in the first instance the Bren team is supporting. And that is the end of the British turns. Over to the Germans. Okay, so where are we? Do we get an air attack? No, we don't. Germans continue to withdraw. This is where they've got to. I'm going to bring the British on here and trying to get them in a position where perhaps it makes it an even fight. So I don't want to put everything into this advance. I do have the senior leader, we've got the anti-tank gun, and we've got a rifles team. We're also supported by a machine gun up here, and indeed that unit in here still operates, so that's what we've moved. So I need to do the mortar fire. I'm going to switch my target, and for the mortar I'm going to fire at that unit that's out in the open there, so it's a full dice and quite impactful. So that's 5. The other units around it are in cover, so I'm just going to say it is that one only that's hit, so might have a rethink before it just continues to advance. Remember too that I can reduce the morale of 13 to 12 here, because I've got the junior leader in with that building as they get themselves sorted. Over to the British, and we can remove that 1 for morale. Next move is to advance the British infantry along this stone wall towards this building as an objective, and I'm also going to move the Matilda now closer in, giving it support. That's where they get to. I'm going to fire the mortar once again, and this is the target. So what have we got there? So we've got 6, it's a 4 plus 2, 6 and then halved. That unit is now up to 9 in casualties. Now I've got a junior leader with this, so I'm going to reduce the morale down to 4, and I'm going to move this unit out. So I've moved the infantry, also moved the Bren team, so that's moved, and I've moved the anti-tank team towards this building. So everything is converging a little bit into this area, and at the top these two, the British and the Africa Corps units, are a bit of cat and mouse I think onto those 2 buildings. So over to the Germans. Do we have an airstrike? No, we don't. In terms of morale, this unit is down to 11. Fire this machine gun at this unit that's advancing. I'm going to say that it's in cover, so we've got to half it. So it's 2, and I'm going to split the casualties because we've got 2 units. We've got the Bren team and the rifle team. So I've moved the infantry towards this building. It's on effectively the ground floor, so you'll see it through next to all of the fruit and cargo, etc. So it's there, and the senior leader is with them. I've now moved the anti-tank rifle, so I can take a shot at the Matilda in the next go. And the Matilda's now got a number of potential targets to hit, because I'm also going to fire with this unit out of the windows of this building, and I'm going to fire at the advancing British unit there. And finally, on top of that, I'm also going to fire a mortar at the same target. This unit are in cover, so I'm going to say it's just the infantry firing first of all. It's a 5, so it's roll it down to a 2. It now goes to a 6. It's plus 2 to this roll, so 7. They are in cover, so it's another 3, but that unit now goes up to 9. It's a very finely balanced game, but I think over the next turn or 2 it'll come to a conclusion relatively quickly, with casualties being taken. So start with a new turn. Again, from a morale point of view, we can take the 2 points of shock off the unit here. Fire with the rifle team at the machine gun on here, and then to be halved, so that's another 2 up to 11. And I'm also going to fire the mortar at the same target. 2. So 3, so it's just a 1. Unit goes up to 12. Bren team has moved up behind the tank. Now with the Matilda, I don't actually think it has a high explosive round, but that's by the by. But I think it would split its fire at its immediate threat, which is that anti-tank unit there, and its machine gun will fire at this the building now that that unit has fired. I think it's going to be probably the Matilda's last turn when we get to the Germans, but here we go. Firing at the anti-tank unit, which is in the open, so that's 5 there, and then the machine gun to the unit in here. Obviously it's halved, but it is a 3. That's really significant, because that unit is now only 1 away from being removed. We do have 2 British units advancing here, so first of all, going to fire with its anti-tank round into the building. Anything but a 1. It's a 5, so there are casualties in there, and that unit needs to be removed, and along with the 2 tanks, that's now the 3rd unit removed. So I'm going to reduce the impact of the morale down to 8 with that one, and then these 2 units are now going to converge on this building. So over to the Germans, and I think this game is going pretty much the British way, but we'll have to see. Let's see if we get an airstrike. Nope, still doesn't appear. Fire an anti-tank round at this Matilda. So we've got an anti-tank shot at a 5. Checking, it's an anti-tank round, and therefore it's a plus 2, so that's 7. So it's certainly the Matilda is knocked out. Both of these units can fire onto the advancing British here. British are under cover, but I'll roll for both. Let's roll the machine gun. It's a 4, so they're in cover, so it's 2. Impact is on one team each. Second shots, however, are just on the rifle team at the front. Okay, so it's no effect. Mortar round is going to fire here. The unit is in the open. So that's a 4. So that unit, I think, is now up to 12. I can also get a line of sight between this machine gun team and this infantry as it advances. I'm going to say it's under cover because the tank is in the way. You can't see all of the units, but it can certainly it can hit. So that unit's on 12. The machine gun fires. If we get a 6, then that unit is removed. I've been great at rolling 6s because we haven't even been able to bring an aircraft in. Well, let's see what happens here. It's a 1, and they're in cover, so it's no effect. I need to get this unit involved, so I've moved it across and try at some point to maybe connect with the British here. However, that's the end of that turn. Now it's a British turn first, and certainly the anti-tank team can get in the building. You can see there's a front door there. The British unit can get some cover as well, so we'll see how this game rolls, but it might well be that the British can take their 5th building. Let's just start here. I'll take off the 2 1s for morale. Both British units can fire, and both of them are going to fire up at the top here at this machine gun team. Again, we half the number, so it's nothing. So it's 2, we're up to 14, and I'm about to fire the mortar. And it's a 5, so that unit is now knocked out. Unfortunately, it's the 4th German unit to go down, so the next one means the game is done. Over here I'm going to remove one of the morale, so the morale is going to go down to 11, and then the anti-tank team is near enough to occupy this building. So just at the second, the British are going to hold 5 buildings, although like I say, you've got to hold it for a full turn. Occupying that building, the support behind it, and then to move almost like the chess pieces around, I've now moved that final British rifle unit out of that building to be either side of this, so it's be a struggle for the Germans to see which one it's going to support. So either way, we are over to the German turn. And what we have to do is to make sure that they can reoccupy this building. If they can't take it, then it's going to be a British victory. Let's start and see if we can get an airstrike. That's the first thing, but no. Right, there's nothing for it but for the Germans to attack. There is a door on this side, so they've gone in, this unit, so they now need to face each other. Casualties is determined by a d6 as normal, plus 2, and you just accumulate it as we go. So it's the German turn, so impact there is going to be 5. The problem for the German player is that if this unit now moves in there, then the British are going to occupy the nearest building, so we've really got to split that out and then hope that the unit at the back there, I think, gives the Germans support to take this building. I'm just going to fire this unit, firing at the British, just the rifles, it's all they can see, and it's just 1 with it being in hard cover. Machine gun can fire at this unit, and I feel that it's in the open, so we can fire there on a straight line. 2, fire a mortar round at the same target. This time it's plus 2, so that's 4, so that unit goes up to 6. The unit gets towards the building but not in it, so the British don't hold this building, so we continue with the next turn. However, I think the most dangerous thing is actually losing this unit. That's going to be the greatest impact. Otherwise I'm going to reduce that from 11 to 10 and from 1 to 0, and at this point of the game I'm going to move the unit that's on 10 into the building. So it's going to be in combat, and indeed the Bren team that's following, so that it's within 6 inches. So we're going to have 3 units attacking this German unit here, and it isn't necessarily holding the building that's going to be the issue. Instead, it's going to be the fact that the Germans are going to potentially lose a 5th unit, which is the game. 1 dice plus 2 in there, first of all with the anti-tank team, which is 7. Result, this unit is up to 12. The second unit which arrives inflicting 6, that unit is removed. And so that is the game. The Germans have lost 5 units, so lost 2 tanks, 2 machine gun teams and a rifle team. And although the British also lost 2 tanks, and they took plenty of casualties also, they also occupy the 5th building. That might be contested, but even so, if another unit moves into the middle, we've still got the British units here to occupy that area. So sensible thing is a German withdrawal with the 2 rifle teams and the senior leader to fight another day, and it is a British victory. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed the game. I know I've added 1 or 2 elements into the 1R Wargames idea with 1 or 2 additional rules, a bit of pieces on morale, obviously aircraft, although they hardly appeared in this game, and yeah, what sort of some slightly different elements to it. And obviously you can add in all sorts of different things into your game, just as long as it's straightforward and simple to play, and in the principle about what this game is, so we can play it within an hour. And I'd just add, you know, there hasn't been a great deal of figures used, just 4 tanks as well. I think you can certainly put deploy 2 forces for 20, 30 figures aside, something like that. So finally, just say thanks very much for watching. Really appreciate each time people are watching these games, putting comments on, and joining the YouTube subscription. More than 2,000 members now, and it's terrific that people watch and enjoy the games. Please feel free to add any thoughts into the video or comments on things like the Facebook group. I've got half a dozen different Facebook groups for Wargames periods, etc. But if you want to go on the Wargaming World Facebook group, put a comment, then feel free, and I'll put some photographs on there too. So, thanks very much. Thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.